Hey, everybody, viewers and listeners of the Strange Oddities Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew J. Haas, and welcome to the Strange Oddities Podcast tonight. Folks, I'm real excited. We have another great guest this week. And before I give her a nice warm introduction to everybody, as always, guys, let us know if there's any technical difficulties with the show. Private message me. If I listen live during the show, you'll hear really bad audio. But as always, let me know if there's any issues. Guys, you can follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're simulcasting both on Facebook and YouTube. We have a website, Strange Oddities Podcast, wordpress.com. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, Strange Oddities Podcast at gmail.com. Guys, I'm real excited about this topic tonight because there's a lot of interest in witches. There's a lot of history with witches. Witch history. Before I introduce her, there's a lot of famous things that has happened around the world, such as the Salem witch trial. You have the famous American haunting, the Bell Witch Cave, of course, John Bell and that story. Actually, witches go really far back as far as the Bible. There's even talks of the witch and King Saul, the witch of Endor, to summon the dead prophet Samuel's spirit to help him defeat the Philistine army. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and welcome Miss Krystal Madison to the show. Krystal, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you doing the podcast. Yeah. Again, witches is a great topic. There's witches get a bad rep sometimes. There's good witches, there's bad witches. So get out your broomsticks if you want. We're gonna have fun. Well, Krystal, let's tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself before we get heavy into the topic. How did you get into this? What's your forte? What's your expertise? I know you're also a psychic. You do a lot of events in the Hudson Valley area, tri-state area. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a Puerto Rican bruja. I am also an espiritista and sancista, which is it's a spiritualist practice in the Caribbean.
Cool.
I am Puerto Rican, so
nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that. So, the interpretation of which sometimes people think, the first thing they think is the woman with the broom and the pointy hat. There are different types. There are very different types. So, I don't know about what my forte would be. Kind of do everything, but the Witch of Endor didn't just summon the dead; she raised the dead.
Right.
So she actually raised them from a battlefield. So, yep.
Yeah. We're gonna dive into the modern day witch versus the history of witches. Again, one of the biggest things of history of witches is, in America was the Salem witch trial, but it also happened in England during the 1400s. You had it all over the world, really. And what would you say? What got a bad reputation about witch? Was it like the witchcraft itself, what practices they did, or what do you think really gave it the bad reputation that it developed?
Well, as far as I can't speak on England, and I'm pretty sure it's probably about the same thing. In Salem, they actually weren't witches.
Right.
They were mostly women who owned a lot of property or had a lot of wealth, who were very beautiful, who were able to sort of make these concoctions and be sort of like an herbalist or a midwife, which was certainly the case here in Sleepy Hollow with Huldah. In the story, in the beginning of the story, Washington Irving mentions Huldah, the witch who lived in the woods. She was a real person. So, I think it still stands today as it did then. People are afraid of things they don't know, or things that are unfamiliar, or things that don't seem natural, or you know what I mean? So I think that was probably what did it.
Right. There are people that do use it for, the not so good things. And, I guess like putting curses on people or
Mhm.
putting spells on people.
Mhm.
We met somebody a few years back. We did a private home investigation. I won't like give any of their information out over the radio, but she was into that stuff, and she was like, yeah, I'm trying to put a spell on this person I'm in love with, and I want to, want him in my life, and blah blah blah, and so that type of stuff is, I think like where the bad reputation comes in, and you know, the bad element.
There really is no good or bad. There's balance. That's the important thing. I mean, you have to, in order to be proficient in I'm going to use the word the occult and not witchcraft, because witchcraft is very European, and there are people who don't practice witchcraft who are proficient with magic.
Right.
You have to be able to work with both hands, so to speak. So with love spells, I won't do them for anybody. I refuse to do them. And I refuse to do them not because it's against somebody's will, because what's the point of having the ability to make change if you're not going to bend will a little bit? So what I have a problem with is, number one, to me, it's a very sad thing that somebody would be so desperate to have a particular person in their life, and that they're not seeing the bigger picture.
Right.
So I mean, if that person left, there's a reason they left. The universe caused, there's a reason. So number two, it never ends well. It never ends well. You end up with, if you look at that movie, they portrayed this perfectly in The Craft.
That was a great movie.
It was an awesome movie.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, Rachel hasn't aged. Rachel has not aged.
Yeah.
I'm like, you gotta tell me what you're doing, because she has not aged.
Yeah.
But they portrayed it kind of perfectly, where she cast this love spell on the character Chris, who was basically a jerk to her in the beginning and didn't really acknowledge her existence. And all of a sudden, he's like all about her, and it's great, at first. And then he became obsessed, and then he became obsessed to the point where he was violent. That's accurate.
Wow.
That's accurate. Yeah. So I mean, it can go either that way, or it just ends horribly, and the person it doesn't last. So I personally, I won't do that.
Right. Is it true or factual that when a spell or a curse, or when you're doing that stuff, that it comes back to you like worse?
That's Wicca.
Wicca. Okay.
That's Wicca, which was, then that is, a type of, I mean, this goes back to what I said before. There are different types of witches.
Right.
Wicca was brought over by a gentleman named Gerald Gardner from England. And I believe her name was Doreen Valenti, who wrote the Wiccan Rede, which you'll hear about the threefold law. Anything you do is going to come back to you 3 times.
Right.
Prior to that, there is no such law. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, there's universal balance. Okay, if you're just a crap person, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but like, if you're a crap person. Oh, okay, cool.
No worries.
All right, I keep trying to like that filter, you can try to catch myself. But if you're a shit person and you're just doing stuff to people for no reason, you're cursing people just because you don't like the way she looks, or you don't like, you want his wife, you want this. Eventually, the universe is going to come collect. Eventually, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Yeah. It happens one way or the other. And, then there's that use of the word karma, which drives me nuts, because there is no boomerang effect with karma. It's an Eastern philosophy that means something else entirely. And I've had people say, well, I don't believe in karma because, I know somebody who's a terrible person and they're living their best life. Like, okay, watch their death.
Oh boy.
That's, they tend to suffer. They said the illness is prolonged. The death is prolonged. So I've seen it. It collects. So, if I have to do something untoward, which I'll own it. I have.
Yeah.
I will in turn, and it's not something I take lightly either. I won't just go out, but I will then turn and do something positive, or do something to help somebody else, or, just to sort of balance that out.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, like I followed you for the last couple of years or so since we met, and
Mhm.
I see you as a good person. I don't see you,
Thank
doing
you.
anything,
I try
bad.
to be.
So, it's really cool what you do. And
Thank
speaking of
you.
what you do, I know you're also the founder of the Festival of Witches, which is an event that I think you've had like two or three of them. I think you're up to, or
No, we're going into year 8.
oh, year 8. Wow. Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know you had that
yeah,
many. Okay,
yeah.
how's that been?
Year 8.
What's that all about? How's that been going? I mean, other than the pandemic, which has put a hiatus
Oh,
on everything.
oh, I know. But we still had the event online, and it was wonderful. It sold out. I created Festival, which is to bridge two different gaps. The first one was the gap between Manhattan, which is where everything goes on, and
Mm,
the Upper Hudson Valley, like Poughkeepsie and up at by Albany. There's events, but there was nothing in between. So I wanted to just sort of kind of close that in a little bit and bring people from both sides to that sort of central location. The second gap that I wanted to fill was the gap between the magical and spiritual communities and the mundane or Christian, or just people who seekers, people who didn't really know about witches. They knew about witches, but they never met one, or they didn't know what it was about, or they didn't know what we did. So I wanted to bridge that, and then I started bringing in um, other types of practitioners, voodoo priests,
mm,
priests in Santeria, priests in Palo Mayombe, and all these different and paranormal investigators and other psychics, and to get a really good balance. And I'll be honest, I started bringing in the paranormal people because I really got tired of seeing how witches were portrayed on some of the shows. So,
oh
you
boy.
know, yeah, well, it was just, I wanted to say, like, look, here, you've met us. See, we're not, you know what I mean? We're not anything like what.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
it's been great, and we have, it's grown
yeah. It definitely
tremendously.
has. Yeah.
Yeah, it's grown tremendously. To the point where I'm considering adding a third day. Right now it's 2 days. It's a 2-day long event.
Right.
And we have vendors. We've had psychics. I'm bringing back an event just specifically for the psychics and turning festival, which is more into a conference type of
Cool.
event. Yeah, and we've had people come in. There was one year there was a lady. She was on her last inch in life. She really was.
Oh
Like
wow.
her plan that day was to just do one last fun thing and then go home and end her life.
Mm,
And she sat with one of the psychics. And I don't know what the psychic said to her. I don't know what transpired, but whatever that psychic said to her completely changed her life,
wow.
and changed her mind. And yeah, so I mean, I was like, okay, I did it. I accomplished what I set out to do. So
Yeah.
it's a great event. There's a lot of great people involved. It's not just me anymore. There's a lot of amazing, amazing people that are part of it. And there's a very like family or familial element to it. Everybody knows everybody. So it's
Nice.
pretty cool.
Yeah. You do have a website, I see, the sleepyhollowwitch.com, if I have that accurately. So you can get all that info there when it gets posted on her website. And you also have a Witch of Sleepy Hollow Facebook page if you want to follow her
Mhm.
on Facebook. I just want to show the audience your website here, so I'm going to share my screen real quick. I'm not going to lose you.
I'm rebuilding it.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
I've been
Yeah,
rebuilding it. So there's some missing stuff, but you get the gist.
yeah, yeah. So, guys, this is her website. If everybody can see, it's on the screen there. It shrunk us, so we're still there. So I'm getting better at this. I don't kick anybody off when I share the screen. I'm happy about that. But yeah, so this is her website, guys. You get all that info. It looks like a really fun event too. People dress up like I've seen like some
Oh,
really
Father Evil. That's for
yeah,
Festival of Witches. That's festivalofwitches.com,
right,
which I
right,
usually put the link on my website as well. But yeah, we
right.
have Father Evil. Um, Who else have we had? We've had a lot. A lot.
Mm,
We had Howard Stern came one year. We had an actor
nice.
from the show Notes.
Cool.
So
Nice.
it was pretty neat. Yeah.
Yeah. We have,
So
quite a few people in the chat. Actually, I want to just, give them a quick mention. We got Anthony Simonelli says hello. Hey, what's up, Anthony? Audra Keeler from Entity Voices podcast, and also have Lourdes Gonzalez from Entity Voice podcast, which I just want to extend gratitude again and thanks to those folks over at Entity Voices podcast, because I was on their show last night. I was actually on their show all the way till 11 o'clock. It was past my bedtime. Um, but I had a lot of fun. My wife and I had fun on their show. And I just want to, say thanks to Chris Allgood, Audra Keeler, Tony Rathman, Sherry Rathman, and all those guys, Ron Yacovetti, for helping set that up. But I want to thank those guys again for last night. We have Joe C. Giuseppe Cardona is in the chat. We do have a question for you, actually, Madison, from one of our people in here. Hi, guys. I have a question. Did she say she's a Santista? Does that mean she practices Santeria? Is that the same thing?
Kinda. It's Puerto Rican voodoo, in
Okay.
short.
Right.
So you have Santeria, you have Palo Mayo, but they're all. You understand there was a little thing in history that happened called the transatlantic slave trade, where Cubans were taken, Africans were taken, Haitians were taken. We were all put on the same boat, and the practices ended up blending, and they ended up. And then you had hoodoo, which is, hoodoo was born from it because, slaves were forced to convert to Christianity.
Right.
So their spirits, their loa, they started realizing were very similar to some of the Catholic saints. So while the slave masters were believing they were praying to the Catholic saints, they weren't. So yeah, you have you have Haitian voodoo, you have 21 divisions, which is Dominican voodoo, you have Sanse, which is Puerto Rican voodoo.
Wow.
So
yeah, I have to brush up on my history of voodoo because I didn't realize there was that many divisions of voodoo.
this is Caribbean.
Yeah.
They took the Mexicans, that was the Aztecs. They took the Cubans, they took the Indians, they took the Native Americans, they took everybody. So
yeah. I always used to say to people, whenever people think of voodoo, they think it's just always bad mojo. But again, there's good and bad in everything.
No, it's a beautiful religion. It really is.
Yeah, that's what people get the wrong idea about it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
the ceremonies are very long. It could be 13 plus hours long sometimes.
Wow.
But there's music, there's drumming, there's food, it's all of them. They're very beautiful religions.
Yeah. Wow. Let's see here. All right. So you said there's different types of witches. Can you explain a little bit further about that? Like what types of witches that are maybe modern day versus, what was labeled as a witch back then?
Sure. Well, I think a witch back then, most of it you would have found was folk magic.
Mm-hmm.
So they were taking the acorns from the oak. They were taking a little salt from the bag they just purchased. You know what I mean? So, but today you have so many different. There are pagans that are not witches. There are pagan witches. There are, Wicca. You have the initiatory witchcraft, like Gardnerian witchcraft, Alexandrian witchcraft, which is a little more, how do I put it? Everything's done within the coven.
Mm-hmm.
Many of witches that get together, they're eclectic. They just get together on full moons, or they get together on the Sabbats, but they're not actually coven. They want to call themselves a coven, and then you have, in my opinion, then there's a difference between a neo-Wiccan or somebody who's pagan and a witch.
Right.
Because I can tell you, for me, what I do would be considered brujeria. So, which is like black magic. I mean, like I said, in order to heal, you have to know how to harm. In order to harm, you got to know how to heal. So, and if you can't help them, don't hurt them. That, it's a very common, practice amongst even the Santeros, among the the Ugans and the Voodoo. Nobody goes into this with an intention to hurt. So nobody with their right mind goes into goes into it with the intention of hurting somebody. But if somebody's breaking into your house, you're going to let them. You know what I mean? If someone's breaking into your house, they might get in, but they're not getting back out. So you
That's
have the
a good
right to
analogy.
protect yourself.
Yeah.
So, but there are those different types. There are some that they just prefer to be in their gardens and make their oils and that sort of thing. And then there's those of us that are a little bit more bougie. We like the 5-star hotels. We like the so they're good. I'm not gonna lie, some of us are. We're a little bit
right.
we're a little bougie. Like you're not gonna catch me camping in a tent in the woods. So it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I don't like bugs. I don't like so
I don't like bugs either.
Different.
Yeah, believe it or not, spiders freak me out.
I'm terrified of spiders.
Yeah.
You want to see a witch fly?
Without a broom.
Without a broom, I'm telling you, spider. Well, there's another one too, but it's weird. So.
Yeah. Now, one question I have about I've seen it used in many practices and many rituals as far as witches and other spiritual practices, but the whole pentagram thing really confuses me. I've seen a lot of people use the pentagram, and again, people think right away pentagram. They think Satan or 666 or all that stuff. What's the use of the pentagram as far as witch rituals or anything like that?
I'll show you. I have.
Uh-oh.
It's easier to demonstrate than it is to. Let me see. Where's the okay? There is a difference. There's the pentagram and then there's the pentacle.
Right.
And the interesting thing about this is I normally wouldn't be wearing pentacles or pentagrams because it's not my practice, so to speak.
Right.
But I've had, a lot of witches, they've gifted them their pentacles right off their necks to
me.
Wow. And then I have two here from two different houses of worship that I'm ordained in.
Right.
So I'm also a minister. So
cool. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah. Well, much respect to you.
Thank you. All right. So here you have the pentacle. Okay. The star, the tip of the star is pointing up.
Right.
Each of the 5 points represents each of the 5 elements, which is earth, air, fire, water, and then spirit. Right. Okay. So this is representative of the human body or the magical body. This is the circle of protection around it. Now the pentagram is the point is going down and it's made to look almost like a goat head.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between the two.
Oh, okay.
I've seen it advertised like a pentacle and then it has the goat head and I'm like, no, don't do that. It's false advertising to freak people out. So
yeah, we don't want to do that.
Right. Now I don't know anything about the 666. I'm not satanic. I don't actually even believe in a devil. I believe if we had to discuss hell, I think this was it.
Yeah. So, right. Literally.
Yeah. And look at all people. I see humans, but I don't see humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the truth. Especially right now. Like right now, our world is like turned upside down, and it's just. Completely. Yeah, so I want everybody to turn the news off. I want everybody to step away from all this election craziness and tune in to Krystal Madison, who's a guest on the Strange Oddities Podcast. We're talking about witches. If you just tuned in late, I'm really excited to have her on the show tonight. I knew this would be a great topic for everybody because it's a really popular topic. Again, you get a bad reputation because of the witches and the history and all that stuff. But
reputation because of stupidity. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. It's just people. Oh, and TV. Don't get me started. On the Hollywood version of Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to mention his name. There is a producer of a show. that I kind of got into. I was like, man, why every time? Because I really enjoyed the show, and I don't
Hmm.
watch that much TV. I mean, I have my certain shows, so I'm busy. I don't have time to watch TV.
Yeah.
But and it got to a point in like their episodes where they're doing these reenactments, and it's like, they walked into this new house that the family bought, and there was a book on Wicca, and the teenager found the book on Wicca in the closet, and he summoned the devil with it. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Like, so I'm like, man, what are you doing?
Yeah. Right.
So
Hey.
it doesn't work that way. I
No.
mean, American Horror Story.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my best friends, it grinds his gears to no end. He's in Ulana Sagwe, which is a high priest in Haitian voodoo, and he lives in New Orleans.
Mm.
Okay. And how American Horror Story Coven was based in New Orleans.
Right.
And, they had Papa Legba as this man, he had this Jamaican accent, and he had the long fingernail to snort his cocaine. That's not Papa Legba at all. Like, that's not,
Right.
he's collecting babies. And he just said, I'm watching you right now, making dumb comments.
That's funny.
That's the bestie in there. This is Hoodoo St. Louise.
Nice.
So
yeah.
his ears must have been ringing. His ears must
Oh
have been
boy.
ringing.
Yeah. All right. So thanks, guys, for tuning in this week, my viewers and listeners. Again, we have Krystal Madison here. We're talking about witches. When you get gifts from people, like all around your events, or when you meet other witches or people with other practices, do you kind of use any protection to protect yourself from, like, in case they're into like bad things?
Oh yeah, it doesn't come into my home before getting cleansed.
Okay. What kind of things do you do to protect yourself, if you don't mind getting into that?
I'd rather not, only because no, it that in itself is protective.
Okay.
If I tell, if I have somebody, let's say, watching,
Right.
that doesn't
Right.
like me, and they've been trying to figure out how to get to me, and I just told you what my protections are. Now they know how to get to me. So
Right.
that's
Okay.
how I.
Yeah.
Listen, Puerto Ricans were superstitious.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get you.
If someone wants me to teach them, I'll teach them, but that's a whole other. It's not something I would broadcast.
Right. So, yeah. You do classes, I believe. What kind of classes do you do?
Well, I have one. It's a series. It's called Occult Arts. So we cover a lot of different things. Right now, we're discussing Santa Muerte, which I'm also a devotee of hers. She is. I'll show you. We're going over her 3 colors, her 3 original colors. She's often mistaken as the Grim Reaper. I mean, she is death. So she is death. So we're just talking about her now. We've covered, how to make effigies in one's likeness for protection. When people think of the voodoo doll, they think of, sticking pins in it to harm somebody else. But there's, you can make them as almost like a decoy.
Okay.
For protection. So, we've covered different things like that, how to work with the different elements and a person's zodiac sign. There are different elements that are affiliated or associated with a person's zodiac sign, and that's where your place of power is. So, we cover different things, all different things. So, all different things.
I'm like I'm getting an education in all this myself right now, because I'm like learning so much from you, just from all this already, and we're only like a half hour into the show, and I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. I am.
Thank you.
So, well, you have a lot of fun doing this, and seems you're very passionate about it. And like I said, I follow you on your Facebook page, and I think it's really cool, like how you set yourself out to be. And again, I really am respecting like how you go about yourself, in your business. And but yeah, I'm excited to have her here on the show. We have another question in the chat. Is Krystal's practice generational?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes. My mother practiced, my abuelita, my grandmother practiced, my tias, which are my aunts, they practice. So, and in various, I have some cousins that are in Palo. I've got cousins that are in Lukmi. I've got, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt yourself to help others that weren't into it for bad things? Did you find yourself in a situation where you had to intervene or step in and help them, or kind of get them out of a sticky situation they got themselves into? Or
Sure.
yeah, is there any experiences you like to share? Or
Um, he's in spirit now. He'll probably haunt me for telling the story. A
oh,
friend of mine, yeah, Sean. He lived out in Ohio, and he was really hot tempered. And there was this oil that I used to make that has a certain type of grave dirt in it. And there are spirits within this oil, and this oil serves a very specific purpose, which is sort of like destruction. Okay, so we're dealing with angry spirits, so to speak, right? So
right.
he knew I made this oil. He's like, I'll buy it from you. I said, I'm not selling you this oil because I know how you are. He says, no, I just want to add it to my collection because he'd like to collect, some darker stuff. And he went at me for about a month, and I was like, all right, fine. But here's what you don't do. Do not use this oil if you're angry. He's like, well, why not? I said, because you're going to regret it. Trust me. Like, if you crack this oil open and you use it on somebody while you're pissed off, I'm not going to be held responsible for whatever happens. Oh, no, I promise. I said, okay. So I send the oil to him, and he had this mother-in-law who's Pentecostal, and she didn't like his ponytail. So she decided it would be a good idea to walk up behind him with a pair of scissors and lop it off.
Oh no! Wow.
And let me tell you, like, I could hear the screaming for So he went and he marked her place. And she fell down the stairs, and I think she broke a hip or something, and part of the house caught fire, and they couldn't figure out how the fire started. And I said, I told you never to. I said, you marked that house, did you? I was like, I knew. He's like, oh my God, I need your help. So I told him how to appease those spirits and get them to back off. They would have not stopped until she was no more. So I mean, that's
Holy cow.
I'm trying to choose my words carefully. So
yeah, no, I get you.
Wow. So I had to tell him, like, I told you not to use that. So I had stopped making, and I was actually selling the oil. And I just pulled it. I was like, it's not a really good idea to be selling this. And
yeah,
I had a part of the website called The Vault, and it was at a certain price. And I questioned anybody who wanted to buy it. Like, do you know how to use this? What would you do with it? Because it can be dangerous when you're dealing with spirits. So
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Here's a really interesting question. I'm going to try to word this in a way. As paranormal investigators, like for ourselves, sometimes we go into investigations where people may be doing bad things, with spells and curses and whatever. And we try to kind of weed that out with questionnaires and, certain questions and interviewing and stuff. And sometimes
there's no mental illness or anything like that.
Yeah. So sometimes we can kind of tell if people are into bad stuff, and sometimes we can't. Sometimes people hide it well more than others. Is there like ways that you can kind of share where you can kind of figure out yourself, like if somebody's really like a bad vibe from someone, or can you tell if
very simple? Energy does not lie.
Yeah.
People lie. Energy does not lie.
Right.
So even when I'm doing readings, if I have a spirit coming to me and giving me information, and the person in front of me is going, no, and I'm going, yes, because this spirit's adamant. I'm going to believe the spirit before I believe what you're telling me. Right. They'll get up and they'll leave, and then 10 minutes later they'll call, or they'll come back and be like, oh my God, I just, holy crap. I'm like, see? So I mean, energy as a whole does not lie.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can if you're sensitive, and any, especially empaths, they feel everything. I'm an empath, so I mean, we feel everything. So they'll know something's off.
Sure.
They'll know if somebody's lying. So
yeah, I've been in a lot of places. I'm sort of an empath myself, and I go to places, and you can just like feel the atmosphere change, and again, you get that vibration where it's like, okay, there's something going on there.
Yeah, I have a friend, and I tell him all the time. I say, "Oh, this person's going to do this." He'll go, "No," and then, a day later, he's like, "Oh my God, they did that."
Yeah.
Or, "Oh my God, that happened." Like, how did you know that was going to happen? I'm like, energy doesn't lie. Like, that's somebody could be telling me something and I'm hearing something else. So
Yeah.
that's the empath. So
Right. Wow.
it's
Cool.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this conversation's really exciting so far. Another question from Lawrence Gonzalez. As a Santista, are you able to summon saints or have saints go into you?
You can, as
Mhm.
in a spiritista, you're essentially you're a medium. So you are in a way a conduit for different spirits. Saints, I mean, we celebrate certain saints, but I wouldn't. I mean, you got to understand too. With saints are the intermediaries between humanity and God. So, and then you have the angels, okay, which if you do your history, they predate Christianity. So, the saints are there because God's busy. He's too busy to deal with our shit sometimes. So, if a saint can handle it, if a saint can handle it, the saint will handle it. I'm funny about who I'll let in. I'll leave it at that. I mean, Hoodoo
Yeah.
Luis will tell you I am super sensitive. Super sensitive. First voodoo ceremony I ever went to, I was like, I don't know if I should go. He's like, no, you're coming. I was like, yeah, I'm really sensitive, and I saw a spirit there that I will never forget, and it's his law, and yeah, I was like, I don't have too many, what the hell is that moments, but that
Right.
was right there at the top. So they're powerful. Speaking of spirit, if you're an investigator, they can do things that you could walk into a place for the first time and they already know your name.
Mm-hmm.
They already know things about you.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so you got to just be really careful about who you let in. But there are saints that we work with.
Cool. Yeah, no, as investigators, I mean, like when we're going to perform a cleansing or try to remove bad energy from a place, we tell our location sometimes that activity will increase or get worse because they know we're trying to remove things or trying to remove that bad energy, and they know we're
Well, they'll
coming.
start before you even show up.
Yeah.
They'll try to on your way there you'll get a flat tire. On your way
Right.
there, somebody in the car will get sick. Somebody, they'll do things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
They
So,
know.
yeah, that's my point. Yep. So, wow. Like what's kind of like got you your education? Like, did you have any mentors or people you learned from, or was this something you ventured on your own, or did you like go to somebody that guided you? How did you find out about these things that you said this is what I want to do?
You don't really decide it's what you want to do. It chooses you. um, it does. It chooses you. You don't choose it. Like I said, I was raised in a family of different types of practitioners, but I was also made to go to church on Sundays. I was also made to go to CCD. So I'd go to CCD, and I'd come home, and I would think I was about 13 or 14 when I realized that my mother's dresser was her altar, so to speak. I mean, she had all the saints lined up. She had all this different stuff going on. And I understood why she would get so upset when I'd play with the statues. So I actually popped the Virgin Mary's head off one time. So she was livid. So, it didn't click until then. But there was a point, I think I was like 18. I was looking for things outside of my own family. I'd never met like a witch before. I'd never, just the women in my family. And I mean, I've got a tia, an aunt who, she lived in Puerto Rico. Every morning when she woke up, she'd have a line of people 5 deep around her house waiting to see her.
Yeah.
So that's what I was raised around, So, but you don't choose it. I mean, there are, in some traditions, they look, if a child kind of exhibits certain traits or certain gifts, rather,
Yeah.
they'll keep an eye on them. Like another thing with me is wildlife. Wildlife will walk right up to me. Doesn't matter if it's a bear, doesn't matter if it's a deer, doesn't matter if it's like, I was in New Orleans at one point, and we're all sitting in the courtyard at the hotel, and these two birds just flew up and right on my lap, looked up, and they started chirping, and my assistant was like, "Knock it off, Snow White." It's like, I don't know why they do that. So I
Yeah.
mean, there are different things. There's that connection with the earth. There's that connection with spirits on different levels, not just like the ghosty kind, or like,
Yeah.
and with energy. And so I was about 18 when I met my first like witch. I was just sort of driving around, and actually pulled into this little shopping plaza, and I got lost in Connecticut, in this little shopping plaza in Connecticut, because I saw a place that sold cigarettes. So I was like, I can go get cigarettes. In New York, I was like, I go get cigarettes. And there was this little shop, and I'm like, huh. And it was three sisters. And it was like a witchcraft shop. It was like they had the herbs, they had the candles, they had the oils, they had the books, they had the tapestries. I mean, I felt bad because I must have harassed them all day long. I really, and I mean, I asked them a million questions, and I picked their brains, and I challenged them and wanted to see if they were real, and like, are they for real? Or are they full of shit? Or like, and I was so excited, and then I was about 19 or 20. It was like 19 or 20. I think it was like 19, closer to 19, when I met my first mentor outside of my family. Her father, she was Ecuadorian. Her father was an archaeologist. So he would bring her sister, her mother, everywhere with them. So they would stay with these different tribes, and they would stay with these different peoples, so. And I actually met her son first, became really good friends with her son. And he's like, you got to meet my mother. And I had like this picture in my head of this woman who kind of looked like me, like the long black hair, or the black, and when she opened the door, it was like bottle auburn red. She was wearing Chanel No. 5. She had this designer jumpsuit on. Like, she wasn't anything like that I imagined. But when I walked into her house, she had a raven in the cage in the living room. And She had a human skull on top of the mantle of her fireplace. And I instantly, now this skull was kind of cool, because how like those Tibetan skulls, they have the carvings in them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like that, but it was a real skull, but he had like different gemstones, like emerald and rubies, like embedded into his skull.
Oh, wow.
And he's sitting there, she's tough. She's sitting there talking, and I'm not hearing anything, because I'm like locked into this skull. And she's like, what are you looking at? I said, your skull. She says, oh, is he talking to you? Like, to mock me. And I said, yeah, he actually is. She says, what is he saying? I said, that you call him Max. And her jaw went. His name was Max something, so she called him Max for short.
Oh, wow.
He had been like the elder of one of the tribes that they stayed with. And when he died, he willed her his skull. And that was the only reason she took me. because Max was talking to me, and he don't talk to anybody. So, and I learned some interesting things from her. So, there's a girl. I was so excited when I found her on Instagram, who also knows this woman, because we were both friends with her son. Mm-hmm. And she didn't make the connection that I was the same person at first. Mm-hmm. She said, and then one day she says, wait a minute. You're the one she used to teach. I said, yeah, she blocked me. So I'm like, what is she doing? So then like 6 months later, she comes back. She's like, I'm sorry. I really freaked out. She goes, that woman terrifies me. And if she taught you anything, like, when you terrify me too. I'm like, I'm not like that though.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was a long story, but yeah, she was my only other like real
mentor. Right.
Outside of, yeah. I mean, I have others, but like that, this life and the spiritual journey, you are a perpetual student.
Yeah.
You never stop learning, ever.
No.
So,
yeah, I tell everybody in the paranormal community, I'm always telling, we're all students of the field. We're all students of the paranormal, because, it's unpredictable, it's uncertain, it's the unknown. So we're always learning about it. So I totally agree with that.
Right.
Yeah. But we have Ron Nicovetti with a question. What's up, Ron? As a paranormal investigator, we sometimes have to go in to help people after an inexperienced team has been there and made it worse. Do you see situations like that where rookies are practicing too soon or incorrectly?
All the time.
Yeah, we
All the
see it.
time.
We see it often.
All the time.
Yeah.
We call so we have two terms. We call them armchair witches or Google witches, because they'll go onto Google and look some bullshit spell up, and then their whole family's getting sick and the doctors can't figure out why. I'm like, what did you do? Or like,
we went on Google. Yeah.
yeah, you looked it up on Google, and Pinterest is dangerous too. I've seen some stuff on Pinterest. I'm like, oh, that's not how that goes. So we hurt somebody. So all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say, you could cause more. If you're inexperienced and you're not really ready to help somebody, you shouldn't be helping anybody until you have that, capacity to do that. And you could cause more damage and more harm than good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, but that's why it's important to, learn what you can, always, whatever you don't know, learn it.
I've been doing this essentially my entire life, and there are times I'm not ruled by ego, first of all.
Yeah.
Usually when somebody goes in and they don't know what they're doing, they want to be the hero, and that comes from a place of ego. So, I am not ashamed to say, you know what, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know somebody. I know I have a huge network. I know a lot of people. I do know somebody who may be able to help you. I know somebody who may be able to answer that question.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
it's important to do that, because you're dealing with, you're tangling with other people's lives.
Yep.
If you've never had a spiritual problem in your home, that could be hell. It could be hell. So I've seen some situations that were pretty bad.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm always finding sometimes, we hear that these locations that we do, they've had other people come in their house, and I'm like, oh, they're bringing us in because they're looking for more experienced people to help them, because obviously those people weren't able to do anything. And, unfortunately we had to go in and clean, not clean up their mess, but, to kind of, bring a better education to them with more experienced investigators.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as ego goes, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of my pet peeves. I can't stand the ego in anything. Like, it drives me up the wall. So, but guys, if you're tuning in,
ego and lies are like my two.
I thought I froze up a little bit. I heard something. All right. No, we're still here. Okay. Guys, if you're tuning in just now, we have Krystal Madison, the Witch of Sleepy Hollow. We've been talking about witches, voodoo, all different kinds of practices.
Oh, I think we froze.
And we may have lost her. Hello, Krystal, you there? Hello. All right, we're going to try to get her back on. There she is. Hi. Oh, I have no sound. I don't know if you can hear me, but here we go.
Bear with me a second. I'm having technical difficulties.
No worries. We have patience. When Strange Oddities
here.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. When Strange Oddities Podcast first started out, we know all about technical difficulties.
My phone. I'm here.
Okay. But guys, if you're tuning in late, we're with Krystal Madison.
Me and electronics and I do not get along.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, a lot of people are like that. Though. But
bear with me.
Again, I'm just grateful that you're here. You're educating us in all different types of things, and witches and voodoo and other practices and stuff. What's your you must get pretty in your area of this when you watch TV or Hollywood, and how they present or represent the things that you guys do when they embellish stuff, and obviously
It
the
makes me
Hollywood
nuts.
effect. What's your thoughts on that?
It makes me nuts. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm allowed to verbalize my thoughts. Is there like censorship on here?
No, no.
Okay.
Not
No,
on Strange Oddities Podcast. This is the Strange Oddities Podcast.
I, I'm never really sure. I mean, it's a double-sided coin. On one hand, because everything tends to come out like the end of September, the very beginning of October, which is our season.
Right.
And which is great because on one hand, it puts us back on the map for the year. You get people that seek me out for October, and I'm like, any month. There are 11 other months out of the year. Like, you just not October, but everybody wants October, and so on one end it's helpful, and on the other end it's like, here we go.
Right.
So here we go. I got to go explain this or correct that, or like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. I gotcha.
Yeah.
So, we talked a little bit about Salem. Have you? I'm assuming you've been to Salem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading. Well, I started to read this gigantic book. It's got like more than 600 pages, so it's going to take me a little while to read it. It's by Marilyn Roach, I believe is how you pronounce her name. I'm going to show everybody the book I'm talking about. It's called The Salem Witch Trial, and there you go. Marilyn Roach. Yeah, it's a huge book. I had only just started reading it, and I was trying to do some of my homework before tonight's podcast. But there's also like alleged rumors of like witches here on Long Island that were tried, and there's no records of it, but it's talked about through historians and
there was one woman.
right.
There was one in Long Island.
Okay.
She was tried but never convicted.
Okay.
Because everything with her happened. I can't. Her name escapes me at the moment. Because in Connecticut there were witch trials as well. So, I think she was tried because like she had two husbands and they died mysteriously, or it was something weird like that. And her trial happened to come at the heels of the Salem witch trials, when the governor came down and was like, this is ridiculous. You're killing innocent people. No more.
Yeah.
So once he had done that, England had sort of followed suit, and New York wasn't touching it. Like, they like, okay, no, look at all this that's going on in New England. Over in Massachusetts, we're not going to be responsible for this. So,
right.
So I'm sort of paraphrasing the story. I mean, just from memory, because I did come across it once.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember it from many, many years ago myself when I first started out in the field. And I thought it was kind of interesting that it actually made its way all the way out here by us. And, I was like, oh, wow, I couldn't believe that we had, somebody that was almost tried, for that.
Oh, they'd be burning me alive.
Yeah.
There's no denying, so.
Yeah.
I always say, like, if you're not the kind of woman you would have been burned back in the day for witchcraft, then you're not really living. So
Right.
You're not really living. If they wouldn't have burned you, you're not living.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Any notorious hotspots that you recommend anybody in Salem? We've been. Unfortunately, we went during the pandemic, so not much was open. But are there any places that you suggest people to visit, or?
In Salem?
Mm-hmm.
I think the House of Seven Gables is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Is that big, like, brown-looking kind of house? Yeah.
I mean, the grounds are gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And they have some really interesting architecture, like, within the house. I mean, they have, like, these little tiny, almost like crawl spaces, but with staircases. Like, if you can fit through and get up those stairs, and then, like, the hallway's narrow. If you're sensitive in any way, or you're just letting EVP go without interacting, or, I mean, I don't know if they allow actual hunts, ghost hunts or anything in there, but the energy in there is pretty interesting. And then there's the there's the, you understand, Salem today was not Salem back then. So
No, not at
Salem back
all.
then was, yeah, it was Danvers, or it
Right.
is present day. It's Danvers. So, and they just recently found the actual location where they hung the accused.
Mm.
So that would be an interesting spot, I
Right.
think.
Right.
Mhm.
I forget the name of the street that it was on. I believe James Anito, who I'm friends with, the demonologist,
Mhm.
he had sent us over to check that out while we were there. He recommended that we go to that spot. I can't remember the name of the street, guys. If you remember in the chat room, what was the name of the street? Some of my friends are in the chat that was there with us. I can't remember it, but yeah, it was kind of off beaten path, and it's got like a marker, and it's not really much to it, so you would pass it very easily if you didn't know where it is.
You mean a large marker?
Kind of, not large, but like
Okay, so it's not the one I'm thinking of.
yeah. But yeah, that's definitely a spot. But yeah, my wife said we saw it. Yep. So my wife is in the chat, helping moderate the chat group, and I want to thank her again as always. Because if I don't, I'm not doing a good job. Then if I don't mention her, so.
No, enjoy it.
Yeah, but
Yeah, usually when I'm in Salem, I'm there for business, or
right,
I see some of my friends that live there or work there. I'm also a member of the Cabot Temple there. It's a witchcraft temple.
right,
It was formed by Laurie Cabot, who's the official witch of Salem. So, I don't get to do the tourist thing, which makes me sad. I did the tourist thing maybe, I think, twice. I was 18 the first time, and there was really not much going on in Salem. There was just like the live reenactments.
mm,
Yeah, and then I think, I don't remember when, about 10 or so years ago, I got to do this the tourist thing, because I hadn't come out publicly at that point.
mm,
I've had my clientele, I have my my readings and people that come to me that have been coming to me forever, but I did not make the decision to come out publicly until about 10 years ago.
right,
So, with social media and stuff like that, and I mean, conversely, I made the decision so I could help more people, but I never really got to do, and it makes me sad. Like, I just wanted to do the tourist thing there.
yeah,
Because some Louise will tell you, because he's there often as well, and he's done business there. It's difficult when everybody knows who you are, and it's like, I just want to go to the cemetery. Like, I just want to,
yeah.
So your phone's blowing up. Like, when did you get in town? And I'm like, how'd you know I was in town? It's just,
That's fun. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I get you. But I guess like is Salem like a place where like I guess like a lot of the witches go? Is that like their go-to place? Or
Yeah,
they're
it's like the mothership. Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like
On Facebook every year I see people who are like, I'm going to Salem this year, and I'm like, oh, look at you. Like, I'm over here
we,
with the Headless Horseman.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another really good spot, like where you are. I mean, we love Sleepy Hollow. We love Tarrytown. My wife and I would frequent Tarrytown and the Tarrytown House Estate. We would stay there, like on an anniversary night or something, which is a really cool location. That place is haunted.
Well,
The King.
it used to be, I believe it was Mark Twain's, or one of his former residences.
Oh wow, I didn't know
If
that.
I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Wow,
I know one of them were. There's one company that owns all those mansions. So I think it was that one.
Right. And they closed one of the big ones that were known over there. I think just recently closed for business. I think the castle one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just temporary. It's temporary.
Right. Okay. All
The
right.
castle's pretty cool. I mean, I was gonna have my witches ball there one year. There's pictures somewhere. I went inside. I took pictures. They have the like medieval Gothic, thing going on inside that ballroom. It's awesome. And they got butlers. And it's like, I walked in, I felt like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. I'm like, oh, there's a butler. I've never seen a butler before in my life. Like, so
Nice.
it's pretty cool. The grounds are gorgeous. They're just gorgeous.
Yeah.
But it's only temporary, just because of COVID. So
yeah. Do you think like that area. Like I remember back then, I used to try to like get paranormal investigations in the area, and they were kind of like standoffish about it. But
They still
um,
are.
yeah, they still are like in a way,
Yeah,
and
they still are.
yeah, do they kind of like welcome your type of events there more, or like
In the beginning,
yeah,
in the
yeah,
beginning they did.
yeah,
At one point I had approached even the visitor center. I said, hey, let's work together. And they wanted no part of it. But the following year, they had
right,
witchcraft candles, they had brooms, they had hats, I'm like, really? I was like, really? So,
yeah, yeah.
I'm not bitter about it. I was a little annoyed at the time, but I just,
Well, you probably gave them the idea.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think at first they thought it was probably just like some cutesy little event. And then they realized like I had celebrity guests. I had all these different people coming in and, you know, so I don't know. I can just assume. I don't know
yeah,
what was going through their minds. So,
right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my city. I love my town. I do. And I have tons of friends here. And it's the politics I don't care for, as
Yeah.
with anywhere really. So,
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. So,
mhm. It
um,
ruins everything. So,
um, my wife has a question. Can anyone go to the witch's ball?
yes,
Cool.
it's not exclusive to witches. We go and we have a good time. I've got belly dancers that come and they're practicing witches. Um, and they're gorgeous. They amazing performances.
Mm,
Um, we just have a good time. It's just a time that we get to celebrate, and we usually
cool.
have an altar to our dead, and lots of
Nice.
food and alcohol. There's alcohol there, so
Nice.
I don't get to drink
I'm there.
though.
I'm coming.
Yeah, I don't get to drink, but if I've even finished it, it's like because I'm usually running around. So
Right, right. Yeah, but as far as the I don't know what kind of history you know about the Salem witch trials, which obviously you do know quite a bit, but can we say for sure, definitively, on record, like if how many deaths that took place during the Salem witch trials?
honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I have friends that could tell you.
Right.
I don't personally know. I should know, but I'm
Mm,
one of those people who tends to worry about what's in my own backyard. So, and I think it's the truth though, but like, if it's not, it gets filed away somewhere.
yeah.
I know what happened. I know, how it starts and how it ends, but other than that, I know, let's see. There was Tituba, who was the slave. There was Bridget Bishop, who I believe she was hung because she owned, was like an apple orchard or something. I think she owned the most land. And there were a lot of, there was
There was the
Giles,
Bennett family, right?
Giles
The Bennett
Corey.
family.
I
The Bennett family.
think so. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's painful that I don't, but I really, truly, I could put you in touch with somebody who could give you
Cool.
quite an earful about, but,
Yeah, it would be cool to kind of like get like the whole like how many or the actual records of everything, and it should be
I think
pretty
it was at
cool.
least a dozen. I think. I think it
Yeah,
was at least a dozen.
wow. And then plus
Yeah.
there probably like some that are even that weren't recorded that for all we know, and that
Yeah.
did happen, you
Yeah.
know. But back then records were done differently. So,
Or
but
not at all.
yeah,
So, or
yeah,
not at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So was the ritual of putting them on a stake and burning them, and like did they all try to do that to the ones that were being tried?
Well, they burned them in England. They hung
Okay,
them in Massachusetts.
right.
I believe they burned and drowned them in England, in the
Wow.
UK.
Yeah.
So I think that was their way of handling it.
Ugh,
There are still places. I mean, I believe in Africa, if you even just get accused, there are people who accuse their parents because they want their parents' property.
mm,
Their parent has become old and you know um, troublesome, so to speak, to their children, and they'll accuse them of witchcraft so that they get executed and they inherit all the land and the property.
right.
There are places where it's illegal and it's punishable by death. I've had people message me on Facebook and say, well, I'm from here and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, you're not on a secure server. Why are we having this conversation? I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to put you at risk having this conversation. You do realize that you do, so.
Right. Wow. Another question in the chat. Middle Eastern spiritualism identifies entities known as the jinn. Is there any practice in witchcraft that identifies them, even if under a different name?
Jinn or jinn?
Jinn.
They're. If you had to compare them, if I had to compare them,
or if they're under a different name, if they're under your, I guess.
Everyone I've ever seen refer to them as the jinn. I mean, if I had to compare them to a spirit, a particular type of spirit that everybody would be familiar with,
right.
I'd say an elemental spirit on steroids. If you've ever dealt with, I don't mean like Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
Okay, elemental spirits they're not friendly. They are easily offended and they can make your life a nightmare. So, that's like these things times 10. And that, from what I understand, they're difficult to get rid of. So, I don't mess with I've had a lot of people say, I was deployed to Iraq and I saw this and I saw that. I'm like, please don't tell me you touched it. No, but one of the other guys did and he died. I'm like, please tell me you didn't touch it. Or just you put it back or you didn't. So yeah, those spirits are no joke.
Yeah, no, we have one location that we frequently visit here on Long Island. We call it our lab because we frequently go there quite a bit. We do our research there whenever they let us, which is kind of cool. It's very rare to have a location to let us, keep coming back and, do our thing. But I firmly believe that there's an elemental spirit protecting the land there. And it causes like shadowy kind of like activity. And we've had people try to leave the property and they've seen figures try to follow them, because they were probably just watching over the land and stuff. Because they've imported trees from China and all overseas, and that they try to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I had that happen once. If I didn't have an experience with one of them prior, I would not have known. I would have thought it was just a shadow person. But I have this cedar tree in my backyard.
Right.
And I got the idea one year that I was going to, trim the tree back in December. I don't know why. I just, because I think I was going to make a wreath, actually. I decided I was going to make a cedar wreath. And I bring all the cedar leaves in and I'm making this wreath and I got the wreath over the fireplace and I start seeing this shadow. And I'm like, what is that? Now I don't like shadow people. I hate shadow people. And under no circumstances should you ever trust a shadow person. Or people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was a little freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, I got this freaking shadow person in the house. And then I started to notice, now mind you, it's the middle of December. It's cold. Okay. Every one of my plants started sprouting mushrooms. My house plants. And I'm like looking at the soil. I'm like, I didn't repot it. I didn't, I didn't use any new dirt. I'm like thinking to myself, like, how the hell is this going? What is this? And then it got to a point where, in the morning I'd wake up and all the kitchen cabinets would be open. And the dishes would be scattered on the floor. And I'm like, this thing's having a fit. I guarantee you. The only thing I did different was I brought those leaves in. And I finally said, I'm standing in the kitchen, amongst my broken dishes, pissed. I'm like, listen, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I'm like, if you want to go back out, I'll take the wreath back out. I'll give you this. I'll give you cakes. I'll give you that. Just get out. And I took the wreath out. I put it at the base of the tree. And I kept my promise. I brought it cakes. I brought it honey. I did all this, and I've never had a problem since. So that had to be. It was breaking my crap. It was like I just gotten those dishes. I was so mad. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I would be mad too. I don't blame you.
I was mad. You know, like grandfather used to talk about. Grandfather was Native American. He used to talk about them, and I can't remember what he used to call them, but they were called something. And you know, you growing up, you know, as a kid, you think they're just like bedtime stories.
Yeah.
You know, so until you start seeing these things, and you're like, oh crap, like
Yeah.
they're real.
Yeah, they're real, right? So,
well, you know, I try to keep a healthy dose of skepticism. You know, I mean, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, you know, I got lightheaded and I you know, spiritually went to a different universe, or like, I'm not one of those people. You know what I mean? So like, Bigfoot, I got to see Bigfoot. Everybody's like, oh, Bigfoot's been running around. I'm like, I have not seen Bigfoot. If I see Bigfoot, I'll probably shoot Bigfoot, but that's because nobody will believe me. I'm like, I haven't seen it, so I don't believe it. So
yeah, no, it's healthy to have healthy skepticism.
It keeps you grounded.
Yeah, exactly. That, like you said earlier in the show, like the one word that stood out for me is having good balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But another good question in the chat by Joseph Nemchik.
Hey, Joe. I know Joe.
What's up, Joe? What advice would you give a person wanting to explore the aspect of witchcraft? Learn.
Well, I mean, that's the obvious. Somebody wanting to explore the aspect of witchcraft. I mean, if you're really, really looking to explore it, find somebody who's reputable. They are not hard to find. The frauds are also not difficult to find. You know, if you click with somebody, start asking around about them. Like, have you ever worked with them? Have you ever heard of this person? Have you ever had dealings with this person? You know, do they teach? Do they do this? Do they do that? Or you can take the solitary route too. I mean, really solitary, and just, you know, there's a lot of good books. Even though I'm not Wicca, I do recommend this book for people who are like brand spanking new, and I'm not trying to like shock them into, you know, I'm like not trying to shock them into these different practices and traditions.
Yeah.
Is Scott Cunningham's Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner. And the reason I say that is because he kind of does away with a lot of the terminology that's used in occult circles that would confuse somebody, you know, brand new coming in. And if he does use them, he explains what they are, you know. So, and he explains, this is the altar. This is why this altar is set up this way. This is why this is over here. This is why that's over there. And, you know, I think it's a really good starting point for somebody. If you're looking into, say, conjure or hoodoo, obviously Hoodoo San Luis has a book. It's called Working Conjure, a guide. Tell him to plug his book if he's still in here. So plug your book.
Yeah. Go ahead. I don't mind. Throw it in the chat. Yep.
Yep. So it's an amazing book.
Yeah. Are there other books that you recommend?
On
the topic, or any of the, you know, your background, anything you read that you recommend?
I'm trying to think. If I actually have a library in my house, so I gotta think about this one. I have a lot of books. Like I said, Hoodoo San Luis's book is really good if that's the sort of thing, if you're into the conjure and the hoodoo. Scott Cunningham, Wicca, a guide for the solitary practitioner. I think he also wrote The Magical Household.
Mm-hmm.
You know, little different things that you do within the home. And like I said, I'm not recommending that one just specifically for Wicca, because I guess I'm not Wicca, but I think, you know, I'm a geek. I really am. I'm a nerd. So I mean, like if I don't know about something, I'm gonna like devour it, and I'm gonna read everything I can on it. And I really felt like, you know, it was a good book for people to get like a good starting point, you know, and then people, you know, you can go from there. Trying to think. Power of the Witch by Laurie Cabot's good. I mean, I think that those books are probably good starting points.
Yeah. Cool.
I've got a lot of books.
Yeah.
A lot. I've got, you remember that scene in Ghostbusters, the first one, where they go into the library and there's that stack of books that goes, I actually have that. And like,
that's
those
cool.
are books I haven't read yet. So
yeah. Does it have any like ooze around anything? Or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the part with the index cards
Oh,
and
with the ectoplasm. Yeah. Oh, that kind of ooze. I thought you said booze. I'm like, yeah, it's got booze. I'm just kidding.
yeah, no ooze. Yeah, no ooze. Yeah. They told Spangler to get a sample. Yeah, that I love that movie. That's my all
That's a
time.
great movie. Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I
I can't wait.
wasn't thrilled with the remake at all.
No, me neither.
No.
However, I heard that the son of the actor that died is producing a new one that's coming out, I believe, next summer. It
Yeah.
got put on hiatus because of everything. So, but I saw the trailer for it, and it looked pretty decent. I'm hoping to get more footage when they get more footage out there. But
I'm gonna have to look up the trailer. Because I know Dan Aykroyd was really trying to get them all together to do another one for years.
yeah,
And it was Bill Murray who was holding out. He didn't want to, for whatever reason, he didn't want to do it until Harold Ramis died. And he finally said, yeah, let's, we're getting old. Like, let's do it.
yeah,
So, and I do wish they had done it sooner, but I thought they were great. I mean, because if you remember, the second one was like CGI was just like brand new.
yeah,
For the second one, when Sigourney Weaver's baby carriage is like boogieing across the street on its own, and like you had Vigo like in the painting, and like it was really cool.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I love both of them, even though the second one wasn't good as the original, but
right.
it was still good for its own,
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, we're getting down to the bottom of the show. It's 9:18. For those who just tuned in, we've been talking with Krystal Madison, the Witch of Sleepy Hollow. You guys can get her website. I'm going to go ahead and share it again. sleepyhollowwitch.com. And I'm going to share it right now. Share screen. And here we go. Here's her website, guys.
Who is also one of the teachers, one of the presenters at my event at Festival of Witches.
Yes.
Which is pretty neat. So.
And the web address for that is
festivalofwitches.com.
Okay, that's pretty easy to remember.
Yeah. I'm not a complicated person. I'm really not. I like to keep things simple.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think most people like simple. So, but well, yeah, nothing surprises me these days.
Me either.
Yeah. All right. So, any events coming up that you'd like to share or shout outs to anybody? I'm
going to shout out Izzy at the Conjure Shop in Omaha, Nebraska. So we'll be there. I'll be there. Sen Moise will be there. Tata Campus and Jack, Ifa Abeo. We're all going to be there in what's the dates? The 10th through the 14th? He's still in the chat. I am asking him. He's like, he just called me. He's like, look, bitch, you're coming to this event. You're doing this. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. So the first time I'm like, what is in Omaha? He's like, no, you got to go. So he got me to go and I loved it. So that's coming up. And then what else we got? What are we in? November? They're I don't even know like what time of the year it is. like with the quarantines and the
I know.
But that's what's coming up next.
Cool.
So the Conjure Shop, you can look them up on Facebook.
Right. And when do you usually host the annual Festival of Witches?
Third weekend of October.
Okay. Cool. So we have to wait until next October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna do another event in between, but then I was actually gonna do an oddities kind of event.
Cool.
Oddities and horror type of thing. And
well, if you want me there.
Hell yeah. And I had all these, he's like Scott Porter, and he's like, oh, I'll be there. I like it because he's like my brother from another mother. I love him. And we got this like inside joke going with milkshakes, and but I was gonna, I love the whole like freak show thing. Like I was gonna have like sword swallowers and like, for the entertainment, like so, but COVID, so
nice. Yeah,
it's
anytime.
not off the table. It's just, left. It's been frozen.
Yeah, I hear you. Anytime you need like a podcast or a radio show to help your events, by all means, Strange Oddities
I
Podcast
appreciate
is there
that.
for you.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, so
I
it's
really
the least I
appreciate
can do.
that.
Yeah. All right, guys. I hope everybody enjoyed our guest tonight, Krystal Madison. I really appreciate you doing the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We got a few more minutes. Before I end the show here, guys, if you have any more questions, feel free before I, hit the end broadcast button here. But we're, we've been talking about witches. I mean, what else is there to say? Any last words or advice for people that are looking to learn about it? Any advice?
Pace yourself. You can't run before you learn how to walk.
Yeah.
So that certainly applies to this. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. And don't ever be afraid to say I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So as far as investigations, don't rule out a witch. If you're having an issue on a location, there are those of us who know how to handle a certain issue. So was that feedback?
No, I think we're okay. Why, you hear something?
Okay. Yeah, I did. So
okay. Hey, it could be the spirits in my house. Maybe they're interfering. I don't know.
It was a man. So they have no shame. They just show up wherever the hell they want. So exactly. Yep. Or psychics. Don't rule out mediums. They can be very helpful.
Yeah, totally.
So, and they can, we can contribute to the science aspect of it. I love the facts. I love the science behind. Yeah, that was actually my first real love. Was like, paranormal, and actually it was called parapsychology back then. It wasn't paranormal investigating. It was all. Do you remember? It was like all lumped in. It was like spontaneous human combustion, and kids with autism. They called them idiot savants back then. Like, and they were like these.
Yeah.
They were like these. They didn't understand it, and it was like this phenomena, and ghosts, and it was all lumped into that one category.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was more sciencey back then too.
Yes, it was.
Which that was the part that I enjoyed, because that's where you learned everything.
Right.
But yeah, it was it was taboo back then, but yeah, it was more parapsychology. Yeah.
I didn't care. I was like that weird kid, like like I remember the kids were out playing. I was like looking at people they exploded like out of nowhere in their living room, and the ghost in the background.
Yep.
With a smile on his face.
Yeah. Yep. But well, all right, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and play our exit video here. Krystal, thank you. If you want to hang on, we'll say our goodbyes after I, hang up here with our viewers and listeners. Guys, as always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to our YouTube main page and click that little bell at the top right corner of our YouTube channel. We are simulcasting, iTunes, Spotify, KGRA Radio Network. Go to kgraradio.com. Check them out. Got to plug them, of course. And we rebroadcast the show Friday nights, 2 a.m. Eastern Time, 11 p.m. Pacific Time for your West Coast people. I don't know. Thank you guys for all your questions in the chat. As always, without the audience, there is no podcast. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. And we had a lot of fun with Krystal Madison tonight. So I hope you did.
Thank you. I had fun.
Yeah. All right. So stay with me. I'm going to go into solo mode here. And guys, have a great night. Be well. As always, I like to throw this out there once in a while. Thank you to those who served our country. Thank you to the first responders, the EMTs, the doctors, the PD, all the fire department folk. Guys, thank you for what you do out there. Please stay safe, be well during this crazy time, and I want to thank everybody for providing your service and serving your country. So thank you for that. Guys, have a great night, and gonna play our video. And here it is. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Strange Oddities podcast. You can listen to the rebroadcast on the KGRA radio. Check out kgraradio.com for the rebroadcast at 2 a.m. Eastern Time, 11 p.m. Pacific Time. You can catch the Strange Oddities podcast live every week at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Please follow our YouTube channel for our live weekly show at 8 p.m. If you like the show, please give us feedback. Email us at strangeodditiespodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, strangeodditiespodcast.wordpress.com. Tune in every week, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the YouTube channel. You can also look us up on Facebook. We have a Facebook page where all the news and information about upcoming guests and anything Strange Oddities Podcast is doing. Go to our Facebook page, give us a like, and give us a shout. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and again, thanks again for the KGRA for rebroadcasting the Strange Oddities